Hi, this is Scott Schmerin, and I want to share with you my story and how hypnosis has changed and transformed every aspect of my life. And perhaps you can relate to this story. Maybe you see some of yourself in this story. You see, when I was a kid, even as a little kid, I always had this little voice in my head telling me that I needed to help people and make a difference in this world. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but I knew that's what I needed to do. And growing up as a kid, you would have known me in my neighborhood. You see, I was the fat kid. And when I say I was the fat kid, I was the fattest kid in my neighborhood. And I was very sensitive and I was teased and bullied, not just by the kids, sometimes even the parents made comments. And those things hurt me. And I began to withdraw from the world. I spent my time with my two best friends at that time, my TV, watching bad sitcoms from the 60s and 70s, and my refrigerator. And I would eat, and I would watch TV and get lost and hide from my pain. And I would get bigger. And then I would be teased more. And then I would withdraw more. And this very negative, self perpetuating cycle got worse and worse. And I can remember times in my life, like I remember in junior high school, every year in gym class, we would do the President's Program on Physical Fitness. I'm sure a lot of you can remember that. And it would be all kinds of things like push ups and sit ups and all kinds of ups. And none of them I did very well. However, the day I hated the most is on one of the days they would weigh us. And my gym teacher thought it was much more efficient to weigh us from the lightest to the heaviest kid. God, did I hate that. And every year it would be the same thing. It'd be the end of that day, they would weigh us in gym class. And all the kids would be on the right side of the gym. They've already been weighed. And here I was, Scott, on the left side of the gym by myself, waiting. And every year I wished for the same thing, that some new kid would move into my neighborhood that was bigger and heavier than me. So I wasn't the last one. That this never happened. And I'd be on this left side of the gym, and the call would come out from my gym teacher. Okay, Schmerin and anybody else who's left. There never was anybody else, and it was just me. And the kids would be yelling and screaming like it was a big honor, like I was the king, the biggest, fattest, heaviest kid. And I would put on this big, fake grin, like I was part of the whole thing. But inside, it was eating me. I was in pain. It hurt. And slowly but surely, that little voice inside of me telling me to help people and make a difference in the world started to fade away. And I would go up to the scale and everybody be cheering and laughing. I'd weigh in. God, did I hate that. And I remember other times in my life. I remember being in my early 20s and being invited to a New Year's Eve party. There were 50 people there. I was so excited that somebody actually invited me to a party. And I remember they had this huge spread of food. And I took a plate, made this big plate of food, grabbed my Diet Coke, and I found this perfect wooden rocking chair to sit in that gave me a view of the whole room and everybody so I could just observe and eat. I remember sitting in that chair, and that chair broke. Actually, you know what? It didn't break, it just disintegrated and shattered everywhere, like out of a scene out of a movie. And I was just sprawled out on the floor, food everywhere, this little short fat guy, and everybody in the room just froze. Everything stopped. And they turned around and simultaneously they began to laugh. I guess if I was seeing the same thing, I might laugh too. I would think it's funny. But it wasn't funny for me. It hurt so bad. And I wish that I could just shrink down to be about this big and go hide in a corner so nobody would see me. And again, I put on that big smile on my face, the fake smile. And I left. I went back to my apartment and I spent my New Year's Eve with my two friends at that time. A large sausage pizza from a place called Nick's and a frozen Sara Lee cheesecake. And I ate them all and I was miserable. I was sick. I ate till I couldn't move. I was in pain. It's like I was trying to drown out the pain I was feeling inside, the loneliness, feeling isolated, feeling like a freak. And that voice inside of me to help people and make a difference in this world, It grew silent. I don't know how many times in my life I lost at least 100 pounds and put it back on. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had just gained back 165 pounds from another program, and I became hopeless. I had no desire to live anymore. It's like, what could I do now? There was nothing else. My life was over, and the pain was so bad. So, in that moment of desperation and pain, I decided I didn't want to live anymore. So, I took an entire bottle of sleeping pills, an entire bottle of painkillers, probably enough medication to kill an elephant. I put them in a paper cup. I went into my bathroom. I put the cup on the counter, and I looked in the mirror, and I didn't see anything. I was at the heaviest I ever was. I'm a giant. I'm 5'6". I weighed 360 pounds. I had a 56-inch waist. I was almost as big around as I was tall. I was miserable. I hated myself. I hated the world. I blamed everybody for all my problems. It wasn't my fault. It was everybody else's fault. And then I took all the pills. And in that moment, I felt two separate feelings. One, I felt this instant sense of relief that I was going to die and that my pain was going to go away and my suffering would all be over. And I also felt terrified. What have I done? What's going to happen if I do die? Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? And I remember sitting in my chair. I had this chair in my living room. Really, it was like my security blanket. I sat there. I watched TV from there. I ate in that chair. I pontificated from that chair. I hid from the world in that chair. And at some point, I passed out. Don't remember much after that. And then something miraculous happened. I really don't understand why. I took enough medication to kill an elephant. I never went to the hospital. The next morning, I opened my eyes. I was still sitting in that chair. And I had this very surreal moment. I remember looking out my living room window and seeing the sun shining through, and I felt this tremendous sense of peace. At first, I thought I was dead. But then I realized I was alive. And I realized that if I'm still alive, I must be here for a reason. And this flood of emotions overcame me. I began to cry. I felt this sense of elation that I was still alive, and I was really angry at myself for what I had done. And in that moment, I got clarity. I realized that I was responsible for everything that happened in my life. Every single one of those things, every experience, it was my fault I was heavy. It wasn't anybody else's fault. And I needed to learn to love myself. So I got out of that chair and I said, you know what? I need to find out why there are two people inside of me. The person who wants to lose weight, be happy and successful, and live a wonderful life. And then every time I moved into that direction, there was another person inside of me that just pulled me right back to where I was before. I'm sure you can relate to that in the things that you struggle with. And so I began to read and study how my mind worked. And everything I read, every type of modality, every book on the brain and the mind talked about the subconscious mind. So I began to study. I began to study all different kinds of modalities, from hypnosis to neurolinguistic programming, creative visualization, guided imagery. Oh, you name it, I've studied it. And I realized there was a commonality. Everything had to do with the subconscious mind. So I started to take pieces of these things and begin to mold and shape them and create this modality that I created that I use now with my clients. I became my first experiment. I remember the first goal I had is I just wanted to be able to go in public and not be noticed for the fat guy. And have little kids pointing at me saying, "Mommy, look at that fat man." That's all I wanted. And I got that. And then I realized there was so much more to life. So much more. There were so many things I missed out on because I couldn't physically do them or I couldn't fit, like going on a roller coaster and not being able to go on it because the safety equipment wouldn't fit me. I was too big. Or getting on an airplane and not having to ask the flight attendant for a seatbelt extender and have everybody in the airplane looking at you like you were a monster. I wanted more. And my life changed. And I remember that little voice came back in my head. You know what, Scott? You need to help people. You need to make a difference in this world, and now you know how. You need to share what you've learned, help people change their lives, create the life of their dreams, and then help them live it. So here I am today to help you. I am here and I am committed to serving you and helping you be the highest and best version of yourself that you can. So, whatever you're struggling with, I understand. I've been there. So, allow me to help you. Reach out to me. Ask me any questions you want, and I'll lay out a program for you that'll help you transform every aspect of your life. Thanks.